Stoughton's Finance Committee. It is Tuesday, April 9th. We have a quorum present, and we are certified and compliant with open meetings laws. Public comment? No. How about communications? Mayor, you got your mic on for...
I'm just testing it.
Oh, all right.
Last night I had an echo, so I'm just going to test it.
All right. Good plan. Good plan. Dave, anything? Communicate out?
Nothing on my part.
Got it. All right. Nothing from anybody else? All right. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the March 26th meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ozzy. Any edits, questions? All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right. Minutes are accepted. First bit up is a resolution for the write-off of 2019 to 2023 delinquent personal property tax bills.
This is a resolution, that you see on an annual basis for those businesses that are either non-operating anymore or have moved out of the area. And we've already done the procedure to get our share back from the surrounding taxing jurisdictions.
Yeah, the only one that kind of irritates me is that $500 one. Like, that's almost a third of that. But if they're no longer there, they're no longer there.
And I sincerely doubt Kunis would want to pay it on their behalf.
No, I don't think so. All right, does anybody have any questions about anyone's in this list? All right, I would entertain a motion to recommend these write-offs to council.
Council.
Motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any other questions, comments on this resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. Next up is a discussion and possible action regarding the remaining delinquent personal property taxes.
This is the last year that property taxes will be on the tax roll, and we believe that we're not going to be able to charge back to other taxing jurisdictions if a company goes bankrupt, for instance, or closes like we have in the past, because there is no more property tax collecting. So that's issue number one. What do you want us to try and do? Do you want us to try and do a little bit firmer collection rather than just sending out a statement? Issue number two, we've got two businesses that are delinquent for 5 to 7 years. They haven't paid anything in that time frame. And we haven't done collection action on them, but I think we may want to. But before I went that route with collection on those two firms, I wanted to get the input from the Finance Committee, what they would want.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I just had a question. Are these businesses that are operating that they need a license at all, that we could revoke their license for not paying
One is
taxes?
a law firm, and so there's no license that I can think of. The other is a tattoo parlor. I'm not aware of any license that we need. They probably need a health department for it, but we're not in charge of that with Dane County. So I don't think there's any licenses that we could withhold in those two businesses.
What options do we have in these sort of situations? when you're
Small claims court.
which can cost money depending on the amount of that they
Correct,
owe.
but if we win the judgment, we'd be requesting reimbursement of legal fees because I would have Stafford Rosenbaum do it. So if we win, we get the money back. But then even if you win in small claims court, then you've got to go into the forfeiture type program to garnish the monies. Now, maybe they will pay right away, given the fact that we're going to threaten to sue them, but I don't know. They haven't paid for 5 to 7 years. I don't know what they're going to do.
And the law firm is probably set up for such a fight.
Probably. And it's not something that you have to decide today. If you want to contemplate it, and we can revisit this at the next meeting, that's fine with me also.
It seems like we need to do something. You know, I'd be interested in if you have a recommendation on the most effective and least amount of work for the, you know, the
Well, the
staff.
most effective and least work for those two entities is asking Stafford Rosenbaum to start the collection process.
I'd be okay with that if we, if, I don't know if my mind would change much between now and the next meeting, but I don't know how others feel, if you have other ideas maybe.
Yeah, I mean, to go after, I think the habitual offenders on it would, I think at least in these two instances, would probably just go ahead and begin collections procedure with that. Ozzy?
Have you sent them a letter and threatened that you're going to take it to small claims court at all?
Not yet, but that can certainly be the first step.
That's the first step I always use. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but
Okay.
send them a certified letter so you know that they got it. If nothing happens from there, then I would say we take it in small claims court.
Yep.
Greg, any thoughts on the topic? Your mic's not on.
I think that would probably be the best way to go, is to start with the small claims.
Okay. Consensus is then I'll write the initial letter threatening him, and no response, we'll turn it over to the attorney then. So then what about the other, I don't remember, it's probably 15 people, entities that haven't paid us. Some is current, some it's a year or two old. I'm thinking we just send a letter to all of them saying we're thinking about going to collections, and then we can see what happens in the next 2 months and report back to you on those non-habitual people and see where it goes from there.
Have you consulted with Matt or any of the other attorneys to see what would be, in their opinion, the best route to take?
No, I haven't, but they'd probably be saying the same thing.
That's what yeah.
Isaac Broski, I think is his name, deals with all the court receivables, so he's well used to going into small claims.
Is there something that you want to put, like a certain dollar threshold on these? Like I see some of these in the single-digit dollars. I mean, it probably cost you more to send a certified letter than...
I'll just talking off the top of my head, if it's less than $10, I probably won't send out the letter.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Unless they add up into several more years. We'll see.
Right, yeah, you may have 3 years at $750 each, you know, which is, if I can add in my head, $22.50.
Nope, I think that's fair.
Okay, well, I've got some direction then. Thank you, folks.
And Dave, why is it that we can't that we can't pursue the other taxing jurisdictions in the future moving forward?
We haven't gotten input from Department of Revenue, but seeing as real estate property taxes are no longer applicable after this year, I don't know whether chargebacks to entities for or property taxes that are no longer collectible can go through Department of Revenue.
I see.
So we're looking at worst-case scenario.
Still seems sort of one-sided, like you're expected to share the revenue when it's coming in, but if you're not getting yours on the other end of it, then you can't do anything about that.
I don't think the legislature thought this problem through when they were working on it.
I see. There it is. All right. You have enough guidance then, Dave?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
Perfect. All right. Next up is our resolution to amend the 2024 adopted budget for ARPA funds to Stoughton Area Community Foundation.
This is basically to do the budget amendment for what the Committee of the Whole has recommended to the Common Council. So there's really no change other than the $75,000. And I already gave the Stoughton Area Community Foundation the heads up that it's going to be tonight for Council and Finance.
All right, do you have any questions on that? Ozzy, you probably were the only one that hadn't seen this.
Yeah, we did these before.
Yep. All right, if no questions, I'd entertain a motion to recommend this resolution to council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Greg and second by Lisa. Any other questions with this one? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council. Next one is resolution to amend 2024 adopted budget for ARPA funds for the revolving loan program.
Okay, this one's a combination of two things. First is the amending the budget to put in $100,000 for the revolving loan program, same as the Committee of the Whole recommended to Common Council. Secondly, I'm taking the this time to correct a accounting adjustment. We had for the 24 budget had ARPA payments as principal payments out, and Baker Tilly for the 23 audit opined that those should be recorded as accounts receivable, not principal expense. So I'm just taking this opportunity to lower the budget in the ARPA fund to reflect that the accounting change. Any questions at all from anybody? Pardon me?
What is the effect of that?
Bottom line, you are lowering grant expenditures by $79,000, but still, you're lowering the budgeted amount of expenditures by $79,000, and that includes adding $100,000 for ARPA expenditures as the Committee of the Whole had approved. It's just a balance sheet activity. Any other questions?
I had a question, although it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily related to adding to the fund, but so it looks like, just kind of a general question, because several have requested funds from both ARPA and redevelopment. If we are short, does the preference go to people who haven't gotten money previously?
Well, Tim's got something on his screen, or displaying on his screen right now. based upon the numbers as of March 27th, if all the loans go through that we anticipate, the ARPA fund would have a $50,000 deficit. Well, Committee of the Whole recommended adding 100,000, so it's going to be in a positive 50 again. The RDA fund is going to have a negative $1,601, but we would anticipate sometime in April, which it is April, if WIBIC pays us on a timely basis, we're going to get 14,000 for principal and interest payments from the first quarter. So it will have a positive balance then. We will have to kind of see where things are going with the applications going forward, because adding 100,000 basically will leave only 50,000 in the ARPA funds. So there's not going to be a lot of money left available unless Committee of the Whole and or Common Council takes additional action. I believe that Regina has indicated a June, either May or June meeting again for the Committee of the Whole, and we'll of course have more updated information. I'm told that the Honey and Lace loan closed April, or was scheduled to close March 31st or March 30th. I have not gotten a funding request for that yet, though.
Yeah, typically the closing has been at City Hall. So we did have one last week. And you said, what did you say, Honey and Lace? Yeah, that one did close. So they were in City Hall last week. It's basically been first come, first serve. So we haven't given preference one way or another. We are in the process of trying to come up with some criteria and some tracking mechanisms. That's why you see the proposal in there from Katrina Becker. And we haven't fully decided if we were going to go through Becker Professionals or Innovation Center Stoughton to help the business owners with the application process and facilitate really the process from beginning to end. Because what we've had is we've gone out and talked to different business owners that have shown interest. Some of them have applied through us. Some of them have applied directly to WIBIC. And what we'd like to do is funnel everything through us. That way we know exactly what's in the pipeline, and then keep the level of communication open between us and WIBIC to know where we are in the process, whether or not the application was complete, whether it was accepted, whether it's been assigned to a loan officer, whether or not it's in the underwriting, and and ultimately, hopefully, they close on the loan. We haven't really had a solid process in place with them to do that, and they have difficulty in their software of tracking Stoughton specific projects, because some of the business owners might not live in Stoughton even though their business is here, so they may have an LLC registered to another community. So when they're doing their search, they can't 100% for certain know if those are actually our Stoughton loans, or maybe they're from another community. So by having everything funneled through our consultant, we can keep better tabs on it so we know where we are, because it took multiple people, ultimately Dave, taking those notes to come up with this spreadsheet. And we know there's other people that have applied and have some that are in the pipeline. We know now there's some that applied but never completed their application. We certainly want to help them do that. Right now the interest rate is 3%. We're looking at increasing that to maybe 4 or 5%, because that'll create enough interest over the 5-year length of the loan to not only pay WIBIC their $2,000 fee, but to pay our consultant to help facilitate the process, so we don't have to use taxpayers' money to do that. So that's what we're working toward right now. Now we learned something at the meeting, that some of the businesses are doing 2 loans, and if they do more than 1 loan, instead of a 5-year payback, it's a 6-year payback. We weren't even aware of that, which the rationale from WIBIC is it lowers the payment and helps, stretch their cash flow over 6 years instead of 5. So we're in the process of evaluating criteria. We can certainly see whether or not it's appropriate to give preference to first timers. Like I said, right now we've been doing it kind of first come, first serve. But if that's something you want us to pursue, we can see whether or not it's feasible to do that. And then, sometimes just because they applied first doesn't mean it actually gets processed first. It depends on, where it goes in their system, who underwrites it, who's the loan officer, and ultimately when it closes. So we have some that have closed that applied several months after others. So I'm not really sure how we would handle that. We're going to follow up on those that maybe applied and didn't finish the application, or others that think they applied but they really didn't, and to see whether or not the additional funding we're asking for is going to cover what we have out there. And if it does, and we need to have a waiting list or ask for more money, we can have that conversation later. It's been a really successful program, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a strong feeling. I just wanted to be sure, like you said, the ones that are still kind of hanging out there, and then the ones that know the process, and so they figure it out, and so they're getting a couple of loans, whereas the other people maybe didn't get the help they needed and lost an opportunity. So I guess that if we have limited funds, I mean, it sounds like you all are thinking about all those things. So I guess that's just, my only comment is just making sure that we help along the people who haven't, if they qualify, that, they don't get left behind because we run out of money. And maybe we need to add more money, but as long as we're, kind of making sure it's fair, so.
Yeah, and then things change too, like sometimes, like the one project they were going to do some residential dwellings above their business, but now they changed the scope where I think they're going to put a kitchen up there instead for their commercial business. Others have had money advanced, like the Honey and Lace one. The first $15,000 they had an advancement on that, so we weren't sure if that was in addition to the $50,000 that they requested, or if it was part of it. It turns out it was part of it. So we're still trying to understand all the rules, but we certainly can add criteria in, whether it's that or anything else. But we're just trying to improve and make it more efficient, because it's been taking a while to process the money. And I think that if we can streamline the application process, that's half the battle. And then, once it gets into their pipeline, it's kind of beyond our control as far as how quickly they can release the funds. But it's kind of where we're at on it.
I'm definitely in favor of anything that either standardizes the process or gets less hands in on it, or less hands needed in on it to make it work. Let's see.
So what are we looking at doing? We're looking at authorizing the $100,000. Is that the plan here, Dave? Or sending that to council? I mean, the committee of the whole's already recommended it.
Right. Yeah, they going with the committee of the whole for $100,000 for more disbursements of loans, and then a correction in the accounting, which lowers expenditures, and then thirdly, putting Becker Professional Services in for doing the coordination efforts on this topic.
committee comfortable recommending those 3 conditions? All right.
Just a question, are they
Yep.
all part of the resolution? I didn't, or is that? I'm
Yeah, I
just-
think they're all in there.
I didn't see the,
The 100,000's in the 4th whereas, and the Becker's in the 5th one.
oh, there is the Becker, okay, thank you.
We'll talk that out clearly. Give me a second, I'll get this jotted down. All right. Anybody have any other questions on this resolution with our conditions? All right, I'd entertain a motion to recommend that to council.
So move.
Motion by Ozzy. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Lisa. Are there any other questions about what this will accomplish? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. And we'll highlight the 3 items in the meeting, in the main meeting. All right, next is the discussion and possible action to approve a recommendation to council to amend the 2024 adopted capital budget for contracts 2-2024 and 3-2024.
Brett, did you want to start the conversation?
Yeah, yep. Thanks guys for your time. So the end of March, we went out for bid for contract 2 2024, which is reconstruction of West South Street. Then also contract 3 2024, which is a pulverization project on Johnson Street and Gregg Trail. On the attachment, it's noted that they did come in over budget. And in the memo, it does explain why. So essentially, these projects, after they're approved in the budget, the 2024 budget, essentially they start the engineering on those projects. And during the engineering process, speaking with residents and also just the normal engineering work that's done, there were some items that were added to the project, essentially to make them functional, to make them work. So the bids were favorable, meaning that the bid tab or each individual item did come in where the engineers thought they would. So we think we got favorable bids. However, they are more than we do have budgeted for 2024. So on attachment A, if you can slide down the screen, I'm not sure, Tim, if you're running the, so I have contract 1, 2, and 3 up. So you can see contract 2, we are over budget by $154,275. Then in contract 3, we're over budget by almost $89,000. So if we combine all 3 projects, we are essentially over budget by $155,132. So I did want to talk with the group, and of course, Dave was off on vacation last week, and I was off on vacation the week before, so we really didn't get a chance to talk. That's why I didn't write a resolution for this. I wanted to talk through this issue and see what direction you guys wanted us to go, and then we'd write a resolution and prepare that for April 23rd, the Finance and Council meeting. Any questions?
No, I think you got you filled in where the needs were in there, and then these contracts, like if If you decided, nope, we won't do that, what would the impact be on that?
So what we'd have to do is essentially go back out for bid, and talking with our engineers and looking through the bid tab, I don't think we'll get better numbers. And to scale back, we're not doing the project correctly. So really, my recommendation would be to move forward. We're not going to get better prices. It's going to be a good end product for our residents and our users. I'm not sure, Dave, we talked about some options with some funding, some fund balance dollars potentially. I guess if you didn't want to do or to fund the project, we'd have to probably cut something. I don't know what that is at this point, but that would probably be the option we'd have to pursue, is to cut one of these projects. And then keep in mind too that the project still needs to get done, so it's going to be more expensive the longer we wait to do them.
So from my viewpoint, I would not recommend cutting the projects. So then you've got two alternatives. You could increase the bonding by the 155,000, which I wouldn't do because we've got more than enough fund balance in the capital project fund to absorb the 155. So my recommendation is in the resolution that I'd probably draft and have Brett review it, is using fund balance for that 155,000, and then just realigning the budget so for these three contracts, so that they tie out to the bid numbers, so that budget to actual is much closer than it's anticipated.
Brett, are there any other contracts that are out currently that would also be in jeopardy of being over budget?
Right now, there's not. I will tell you later in this summer, there is some projects that right now we are working with the engineers on, more on the park side, that are trending towards being over budget. I will say that we're doing some value engineering, also working with some other stakeholders to get some funds. I think I think that there's a potential that there's some other projects that may come in over budget. However, I think these are more critical at this point to get done. Those others we could potentially shift around and even move into 2025 for some. Others we can't because they're tied to grants, and we can go through that. Probably the next couple of months, those will be coming your way to talk through. But we can also utilize the 2025 capital process for some of those, because they do go from fall of 2024 into the spring of 25. So there's some potential we can split those projects into two and move to a different year.
Okay. When you're saying by over budget, do you mean even beyond the contingency?
Yeah, including everything.
Okay, got it.
But I don't want to scare you, because we are diligently working to get those within budget, or to work through that to make sure they fit in this year's budget. We also don't want to handcuff you to a 2025 budget and say, you have to pass this because you already passed this portion in 24. We don't want to do that. We'll make sure it's approved as a collective, and you guys know what's coming down the pipeline.
Nope, all understood. We just want to make sure that we're kind of smoothing out the bumps a little bit here.
Yep, understood.
All right, does anybody have any other questions or thoughts on that, Mayor?
How many bids did we get on this one, Brett? You said quite a few, didn't you?
Yeah, there was, I think, 4 for one and 5 for the other. So very competitive. Like I said, they were all favorable numbers. It was just there's more added to the project. We have been trying to get these projects designed basically before the budget's passed for the next year. That's been very difficult, but we'll keep trying, especially these larger projects. These are all big projects, all 3 of these. And when you start to really get into them and work with the stormwater side of things and making things work, all of a sudden you're adding a $20,000 item or $30,000 item. Those can add up pretty quickly. So I think the takeaway though is we really need to try to get these projects start the design early on as possible. We do have some engineering dollars set aside to do that. We really need to start making that happen. Because then we get better numbers going into the capital budget process.
Right. Were some of these projects as a result of like things discovered while in process? I mean, I know you said you've added things in there, but was any of it a surprise?
Yeah, so some of it has to do with ADA, as mentioned, like on West South Street. We start to get into retaining walls, get very expensive, and when you start to make those changes because they're ADA related, historically the city's always supported those and not assessed for those. So those types of things, there was a huge retaining wall on West South and Page on that corner. We had to lower essentially the elevation of that sidewalk to make it ADA compliant as it came into the ramp on Page. Well, that tied into a retaining wall, and once you get into retaining walls, that gets expensive.
Yeah.
That's just one example of a couple others. We added some stormwater onto that project to make it function. In the long run, it's money well spent, but those are things that were uncovered during the design process.
Got it.
One other thing too is that we still do get revenue back on these projects over time through assessments. So this is the full freight of the project. Essentially, we have to fund everything up front. Then we do get that revenue back over time, depending on how much the assessed value is and how they choose to pay those back. So technically, we'll be getting all that money back. That's in the red, but it's going to be over the course of a couple years.
Right. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts on that? Lisa?
No, but it may be something just to tuck away when we talk in the future about the special assessment policy and that fund being so large that maybe, especially if there's an ADA improvement, it may or may not be worthwhile using some of those funds, but just a thought for the future. So,
yes, sorry, Lisa, good point with the ADA stuff is typically, if it's ADA related, the city is paid for those and not assessed for them, especially as it goes into the corner in the corner ramps to be ADA compliant. And then this one, because it's on a corner, that ties into a retaining wall, and it has to be changed because it's ADA. That's where the city's covered the cost of that, because traditionally that's how we've always done it. Dave and I have talked to, and I'm going to draft a policy. Yes, we do have ordinance for our assessments, but there's really no policy. And then that'll be coming to this group and also Public Works to discuss what the policy should be on assessments. And that also gives us guidance too. So that'll be coming your way in the next couple months. But this year, essentially, we're following the current assessment ordinance and plus past practice as it came to ADA.
and
Yeah. Follow up, Lisa.
yeah. So at this point, we're not looking at, you're just looking for guidance as far as a general approval rather than a formal recommendation to council, because we don't have the resolution, right?
Correct. This will come back to you on the 23rd,
Okay.
Before council. So just to give you a heads up, we'd like to take it to council the 23rd to approve the contract. So we'd like to have your support, of course, on the 23rd, and then go to council for the budget amendment, and then after that to approve the budget as a separate agenda item.
Thank you.
Dave, are there any restrictions to being able to use special assessment fund for something of this?
No, it's all related, special assessments relate to road and curb and gutter and sidewalks, so, yeah, there's no restrictions there whatsoever.
Okay, maybe that's an option, but like to recap what you said, to use the capital project budget fund balance in order to fund the rest of these contracts out. Enough guidance on that one?
Yes.
Got it. Thanks, Brad.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Great,
Brett.
thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Yep, see ya.
All right, next up is a resolution of the First Amendment to payment for municipal services agreement.
From what I understand, what went down last week while I was gone is the attorney for the people who are buying the tax credits for the project wanted two small changes to the First Amendment that was approved at the last meeting. So my understanding is the attorney for both Greenspire and Stafford Rosenbaum are fine with the two changes. So that's the reason it's before this body again.
And that was just on no property taxation and then with extra copies going to these other entities?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, the two blue line versions.
Yep. All right, that's pretty simple. Anybody have any questions on this one? All right, I would entertain a motion to recommend this to council.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa, second. Greg, you got that one? All right, Greg on the second. Any other questions on this agreement? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. Last one up is a resolution of approval of service agreement with iWork Systems Incorporated.
Oh, I wasn't even where you were here. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, while Rick's coming up, basically iWorks is something that we use for a tracking system, which you might have figured out when you read the resolution. And Director Chris is trying to expand on utilizing this, so we have not only tracking within her department, but really throughout the whole city. And what we're trying to do is things, I'll give you an example, is if somebody submits a permit, an application for a permit, we want to have it set up so they can make payment and then make sure that any documents that need to go with it are submitted at the same time. And we can use some features in the system that'll basically won't allow the application to be submitted unless the rest of the documents are attached. And that's been a thing lately where developers will fill out an application and maybe they forget to leave the check or pay online, or maybe they don't attach a CSM or another document that we need to review before we can put it on the agenda, and it delays getting things approved. So one of the things that they want to do is expand our agreement. Rick probably knows more about it than I do.
Well, Tim did a good job of summarizing. I mean, basically, it's a service that the planning department already uses. This agreement would just expand the service level and, like the mayor said, basically streamline the application process so everything goes through the system, and that way all the documents are in one place. So the entire permitting application process can just go through this system. So it's a increase of a few $1,000s per year for the service contract, but this is something the planning department already uses. I believe the city clerk said she uses a iWork as well. So it's something that departments are using. It's just sort of an expansion of the service to help streamline the application permit process.
Yeah, and it'll also help, I think, with the internal communication. If Brett was on here, he would use the example of a lot of times our engineering tech will be out in the field inspecting sidewalks or roads, and when they put something in the system, would they want somebody from the planning department or maybe the building inspector or somebody else, the engineers, to be able to look at the documents and have it more systematic where it talks to each other, I think allows better systematic communication.
So can this system also, when we were talking about frequent flyers who either maybe do work without a permit or don't pay something and then they keep requesting more permits. So I'm just wondering, can this system, you know, can you put that sort of information in so it'll pick up like Joe shouldn't get a permit for X street because he's still got a mess on Y street?
I see Rick or Chris is online now. That might be something she can answer.
I'm not sure how that all works. So I'm not quite sure what the new system, the expansion of the services would be. But it would at least allow you to track and see the application status to make sure all the documents and fees have been submitted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. So right now we would use iWorks currently for building and zoning permits, and I believe that the clerk also uses them for tracking dog permits as well, and a couple other things. One of the nice things I know is when we get a building permit in currently, it'll tag it if it is, like it'll have like a red marker that'll come up if it has to go through like historic, you know, approval and that kind of stuff. So basically, one of the things that we've noticed, at least in our department, is that when we get these in, a lot of times, I'm not sure exactly the method that they used prior to us, but sometimes we'll get a permit filled out, and then we'll get the information like in an email or something along the lines of that. And so I'm really, you know, we've been looking into this because we're missing stuff, or stuff is getting sent to one person and then the other stuff is going to another person. And we're really hoping more to streamline this process. You know, that's one of the things that we've been looking into. So yeah, it's been, this is one of the reasons we're looking into this. Right now, what we have, I think, is essentially it's only like a 3-tiered spot. And so if you get into iWorks and try to fill out a permit, there's like, it's kind of in 2 sections if you go on. And the top one you can see is, you can go through the iWorks approval process there. And then the bottom box is stuff that would just, you basically go in, print out a PDF, fill it out, then bring it in. We then put it into iWorks. I think this is kind of one of those things that we're hoping will streamline the system. So.
Go ahead, Lisa.
And is this gonna come out of operational, Dave? Are you concerned about the additional funds, or?
I'm not concerned with the additional 5,000 out of operations. I'm sure other things are going to come up as Chris works through her department that she want to make some changes on. So we may have to make some larger changes in the future, but 5,000 isn't enough to worry about now.
And the way that we're working right now is, so we currently are just trying to, we're working through kind of what's going on right now with just our department, and we're going to be going through a lot of changes on our end. And so right now we wanted to kind of get this in place so that if we move, like if we discover hiccups, then we're not going to go through with the process. However, with that said, I think that only a month in on this job, we're going to have to make some changes because I feel like stuff is getting missed, and and a lot of that I think just has to go back more to the fact that we had essentially 2 people in the department that were here for 30 years, and so they were a well-oiled machine at the time, and I think this is the time to start looking into changes. So,
Chris, do you see this one as a significant time saver for your department?
yes, I mean, honestly, I think one of my biggest concerns is personally, like, and it makes me, I don't like missing things. I don't like missing things, essentially, like when we get applications in. I want people to have every advantage when they're getting their stuff to us, as far as building inspections, all of that stuff, which is done now. But I think if we can shift the conditional use permits, CSMs, that kind of stuff, what I'm hoping for is that it prevents some of the hiccups that we've been having in our department, which is just, you know, and the other thing too, it'll be nice to see, we can kind of track and see how long stuff takes to turn around, what kind of, what we can use maybe to streamline some of the stuff that we're doing. So I'm kind of hoping it'll be a time saver, not just for like us, but the city as a whole and the applicants, to be quite frank. So.
All right, I am always about streamlining and standardizing forms, especially.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd move to recommend to council.
Okay, there's a motion by Greg on the table. Is there a
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any other questions on this resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council tonight. And that has brought us through our business at hand. Still got hacking away at our future agenda items, and we're getting there. Greg?
Yeah, on the special assessment policy, Dave, could I ask for a little bit of information when we bring that back?
That is going to be dependent upon when.
I'm sorry, say again?
That is going to be dependent on what Brett gets time to develop the policy.
Okay, but I mean from your department, you're the one who is overseeing that account, correct? And your department is processing.
Well, we deal with the
payments and
receivable,
such.
yes.
Okay, so I was wondering if we eliminated that assessment, special assessment, that obviously would save you some money and some time.
Yes, if special assessments were eliminated, it would save us time, but I'm certainly not advocating to get rid of special assessments because it would affect the city financially.
Yep, that's what we need to know, is the effects, what would the actual effects be?
Well, the actual effects would be we'd increase the amount that we would issue for bonds.
Yep. Either increase or we would as I said in the last meeting, we would lower the scope of the project, one way or the other.
Correct, and as Brett had indicated, if you lower the scope of the project, you still need to do those things, and then the costs are going to go up, which is why I never really advocate for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
All right.
It'll be an interesting discussion.
Yep. And we'll do that. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa, second by Greg. Any other questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
I made it.